My name is John Sears. I am the Admin Services Coordinator for the Division of Forest within Forest Parks and Recreation. We're back with our Microsoft Essentials series, and today we're talking about Planner Essentials. So, at least in state government, we've been using. Oh, that's the wrong thing. We're not talking about Planner. We're talking about Teams. Just in case you thought you were in the wrong place. Um, and not Treams, but Teams. And so we've been using Teams in state government now since the pandemic began. And because of that, we've got a sort of passing familiarity with the service, I think, by and large. It's pretty broadly used and it's used in a lot of ways, but in my opinion, it's really suboptimally. So, my goal today is to kind of give you an introduction to some of the functionality of Teams that you might not be accustomed to taking advantage of. And when I say or a lot of us are using it, it's used by roughly 2/3 of state of Vermont employees on average every day. So it's very broadly used. It is almost as popular as Outlook. People just have it up, and there's a good reason for that, and we can take advantage of that. And it does a lot of things, or can do a lot of things. There are a ton of features, and we're not going to be able to cover it all today. Um, but we're going to be, but just at a quick glimpse, the things that Teams can do. It's got chat functionality, Teams channels, phone and video, obviously, video meetings, approvals, all built in. And the key thing is that it's highly customizable. So we're going to take a look at how we can do some of that customization to make our own Teams experience as great as possible. So as a quick outline, we're going to talk through some basic features of Teams. So the teams themselves, creating channels, posting and file tabs, managing a channel, adding tabs. We're going to talk about the chat itself because there's a lot of functionality there that goes underutilized, including group chats, pinned chats, and custom messaging. Then we're going to talk a little bit about advanced features, tags, advanced meeting types, some settings, exploring domains. We'll talk a little bit about best practices, and contrary to our normal practice, instead of doing a quick exercise, we're going to leave it as TBD. So we'll sort of go through some stuff, and then I'll ask you what you want to see, and I'll show you some of that because it's a little bit hard to um, demo something that you can just put into practice because you might have to talk to IT to build a team before you can do something, or you might not feel comfortable doing it in a team you currently have. So we'll just kind of leave it open to see what you want to see. So let's talk team basics first. So this is what my uh, teams page used to look like. At least in state of Vermont, IT is required to create a new team. But all you basically need to do is send them a message and say, hey, I want a team and I want to be the person that owns that team. And they'll go ahead and do that for you. And that's really all you need to get started is who's going to be the owner of the team. And um, for people that do have the availability, you can create a team. Um, but the big thing is that everything can be customized, including members. So you don't have to know everyone that's going to be on a team. That can change, that can evolve, but you can customize that moving forward, and that's all customizable right here on the main page. Once you've got your team up and running, tabs are where you really live in a team. So you can you have your general channel, but you can create multiple subchannels. There are two different kinds of subchannels that you can create. One is private, which is basically you get to specify who gets to access that channel through the functions of the team. And any subchannel that you create can only be comprised of people that are in the parent team. So if I want to create an admin team that's got all the admins for Forest Parks and Recreation, and I want to create a sub team out of just the admins that work with me in forestry, I can go ahead and do that as a sub channel if I want to. Um, as far as when you use a private channel versus a not private channel, it really depends on whether the information there needs to be separated so that only specific people can access it. But generally speaking, um, if you want to create a sub-channel, you don't necessarily need to make it private. Only if you want to maintain who can access that information. Um, so we've got channels and we've got sub-channels, and for each channel and sub-channel within a team, you can create tabs. So those tabs can be totally different for each sub-channel, and those tabs can really host anything. You can see here a sampling of the various tabs that you can add. So you can add actual applications. So if you've got an Excel spreadsheet that everyone in your team is working on at a given time, you can go ahead and make that a tab so everyone has easy access to it. Um, you can create lists. You can have forms so that if you need to submit a form, it can just be a tab in your channel. Um, it's really a way to partition the workout such that it makes sense. And they can be really, really versatile, including you'll see right here this little innocuous website icon right here. If it has a URL, you can make it a tab. So the way Teams is really designed to work is as a central hub for the work that's going on. If you've got a team doing specific kinds of work, accessing the same kinds of websites over and over again, you can make that your team and its tabs so that everything they need is right there and easy to access. Um, and managing the teams themselves is really, really easy. You can see right here how easy it is to, you can manage the team. So that's accessing things like the icon. Um, you can add members, you can edit the team. It's really easy to add additional channels and sub channels. You can also hide and pin various channels and sub channels. So if you are someone like me who is on a lot of teams, you can really customize how you want those to be visible. I can just show you that real quick. Um, so over here on my teams, I have hidden teams, so the teams that I access very rarely, the teams that I want ready access to, or that I have been using more frequently recently. And then you can also pin channels and sub channels. So I've got our water cooler, which is like our social gathering space, our main admin services page, the management team, and the admin assistant team, all pinned at the top here so I never lose track of them. But it's really about customizing for the team and customizing for you. You can customize it however you want. One of the areas where we have a lot of flexibility is in the chats section. So, all right, you're gonna be, yes, you can pin subchannels. Um, that's new-ish, I think, the ability to pin subchannels, but it's really, really cool because it means that you might not be active on a channel more broadly, but a sub-channel you find yourself going in regularly. It also saves you the trouble of having to open the team, open the sub-channel, and then go in. You could just click and you're right there in the sub-channel. Um, so speaking about chats, you might find yourself in the position of working with a group for a limited period of time. Maybe you don't anticipate working with them forever. Some examples of this might be so my VCPM work group. Um, you might also find yourself wanting to be in a more active environment where you're going to have a lot of ongoing conversations. So the like little default messaging system that's built into Teams doesn't really fit what you're trying to do, but you do want a group of people to see things. Chat isn't just for one-on-one exchanges. You can create what are called group chats, and they can be really, really powerful. So just like a team, you can add additional tabs that host information. With a click of a button, you can start a video or a phone call and it'll hit everyone in that group chat. You can manage that group chat both in terms of the membership of the people in that group, so you can add people or remove people as needed, um, and you can customize the name of that team. So like my Forest admin team, we could have an actual team, and we do have a team that is set up for admin services, but for our ongoing conversation, we need it to be a bit more active. So we've got a regular chat that is set up so that we can have big group conversations, even if it's in a staggered fashion, but things that can come up, be discussed, moved on from. Um, by default, all you have are chat and files. I've built a form for requesting leave that's just built in as a tab into our Teams chat. So if they want to request leave, they can go in and do that. And the leave data right here is so that they can see the members of that team once they request leave and I approve it, which I always do. You can look at the calendar of when people are going to be on leave by just clicking on that tab. And so you can add additional tabs to really, again, it's about customizing that workspace in a way that suits you. So I'm using group chats for a couple of things. Admin team. I'm currently in VCPM right now. So the VCPM work group that I'm in, that's part of our leadership training. We're collaborating a ton on this as a way of coordinating our group project and making it successful. We don't need a whole team, right? We don't need to go to IT and ask them to do this. You could just do this. You just pick who you want on your team chat and you're ready to go. So while we're digging a little bit more into things you can do with what you already have without going to request new teams, on that theme, we're talking advanced features, and I want to talk about tags. So many of you might be familiar with @general. So if you are on the main post page and you want to get everyone's attention to a specific post you're doing, you'll type @general, and it will basically give everyone a little activity marker, and it will highlight the team and the chat that occurred in. There's a couple of things about that. One, you can @general in any subchannel. Although with a private one, they wouldn't get it because they wouldn't be able to access it. But with as long as it's public, you can draw people to any given subchannel. It doesn't have to be on the general channel to do that. Also, @general is not the only kind of tags. It's just a tag that kind of comes default that automatically hits everyone in a team. You can build your own tags with various groups of people. So, for example, um, let's say you have a communications team within a larger team. And in general, um, you don't want to hit everyone with I think this would be a great Twitter post, right? But you might be interested in telling your communications team, hey, what do you think about this as an idea for a post? Maybe you're not ready to like formally propose it or anything, but you can, if you have a tag that is, for example, @communication or @comms, whatever you want to call it, you could ping them and say, hey, what do you think about this as an idea? And it allows you to really target the audience of that message. They'll get the same kind of alert they would if it was @general, but instead of it being targeted to everyone, it's targeted specifically to audiences. This one is limited to team owners. All the other stuff I've mentioned, that's something that anyone can do. You don't have to be a team owner to create a tab, and you don't have to even be on a team to use the team chat function. So that's accessible to everyone. The other thing I'll add is that depending on your settings, and this is true for state government, um, you don't have to add an @vermont.gov email address to a team. You can invite anyone to a team. All you have to do is add their email address. Now they'll be in as a guest instead of a standard user, but the functionality is pretty darn close to the same. So if you've got someone that you is basically a kind of sort of part of the team, but they might not be in your organization, it's still really easy to add them to a team. So you might experiment with this at some point in the future, but if you find yourself in other domains. So like ours says state of Vermont because we work in state of Vermont, but there are other um, partitions of teams that you might find yourself working on, and you can navigate from them using by clicking up here in the domains. And you can see I've got a couple here. I've got like the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, because they've invited me to do some talking occasionally. I've got University of Vermont on here again for that VCPM training stuff. And depending on their settings, um, like in order to access chat, I have to be on the University of Vermont domain when we're having those meetings. So you manage that through here. And so you may find yourself navigating those domains as Teams becomes more prolific. Um, a lot of people complain about a lot of people will leave Teams off because they're sick and tired of getting notifications, and that's understandable. And those little pop-ups and stuff that happen can be really distracting, but you can actually customize all of that. So up in the top right, if you click on the ellipses, or I think it's actually if you click on your name, you can access settings, and there are a ton of settings on here, but notifications are highly customizable. You can really tweak and modify those to your heart's desire. And the final piece of advanced features I really want to highlight is I think when most of us create a Teams meeting, we're in Outlook, we create a meeting, and then we add a Teams link to that meeting. But you can also do it in Teams in the calendar section. So what that allows you to do is access not just standard meetings, which is just schedule a meeting, but you can also schedule webinars and you can schedule live events. Webinars offer things like pre-registration and a couple of advanced functionality pieces around providing webinars. Live events are a special case that are you really only want to deploy if you're dealing with really, really large audiences where you don't want active chat, but you might want some Q&A, or you might need some actual production value stuff going on where like maybe you'll have multiple speakers and you want to be able to handle them and have stuff on deck. There's a level of expertise to be a really good producer. And honestly, as the um, capacity of standard Teams meetings has grown, the appetite for doing live events has diminished greatly. Um, there's also some cool stuff with live events where the link for attendees to attend a live event becomes the actual recording of the live event after it happens. So people can still access that link, they can still use it. And I think that's up for 6 months. Um, and that's one thing to highlight is the fate of video recordings in Teams has changed quite a bit over the last 6 months to a year. I think previously it was automatically going to um, Microsoft Stream, and then it was going to OneDrive, and now it's still going to OneDrive, but the way it's viewed is slightly different. So just be aware of where that recording might go. And by default, they are set to expire. And you can always open them and you could turn off the expiration date if you access it and you're the owner of that video, if you're the one that recorded it. So just a quick best practices. Install Teams on your phone. It's really, really easy. The app is really good. If you are in a place where your primary internet is not great, it can be really handy. You can take your meeting on the go if you want to, and also it's a good place to have chat. Um, expire in Teams where they're saved to the OneDrive. They'll expire in Teams, but it's as easy as opening it up and clicking the little checkbox, and they won't expire. So, I encourage you to make Teams a one-stop shop for your team. If you've got a team that is all accessing the same kind of stuff, put it all front and center. Make it a make it the thing that you not just have open because you need to have it open, but because you want to have it open because everything you need is there. Consider non-private sub-channels for cross-functional topics. So I encourage people to think big about the team that they might need because you can always create sub-channels that might serve vital functions. So if, for example, we have an FPR wide team, you might have sub channels that are for either cross-functional groups or working topics. So if we've got a diversity committee, that's a sub channel within the broader team. Communications team. These, as long as these teams are comprised of um, people within the larger team, it's a lot more convenient than creating a new team, I promise you. And whether you start a new channel or a sub channel or a team chat depends on the resources you think you're going to need. Um, I find that the chats are really, really great. Um, but if you think you might need an actual SharePoint site backend to make things visible for lots of people, if your team is going to be 2 or 3 people, maybe just stick to a chat. And if you're not sure, um, really just think through what kind of communications you want to have, whether you want the post style system or whether you're feeling more like a chat function would be great. And basically ask yourself, if we had a chat function, would it quickly get overwhelmed with a bunch of people responding and responding to responses? So you need the topic breakdowns of a post style tab. That might help distinguish whether you need a channel, a sub channel, or a team chat. Right. So the exercise is, what would you like to see? So go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself or put something in chat, and I'm happy to kind of show off some features. If you don't have anything, I can just kind of show off the way my Teams is set up, but I want to give people the opportunity to chime in about something they're interested in Teams or have questions about. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and show off my Teams a little bit. So there's a couple of things that you can use to customize, talk more about approvals. All right, so the primary way you access approvals is through Power Automate. Um, so you can see approvals here as a tab. And by the way, this sidebar here is also customizable. You can find various apps and add them to the system right here. There are even more that are accessible. We will get into some of the most popular versions of these, like bookings, shifts, things like that, in our last session, because they don't necessarily justify an entire training on them, but they're all here. You can customize this, but approvals is really, really powerful. So you can either generate approval requests. So let's say you want to ask permission and you might need multiple approvers. You can customize whether it has to be require a response from all recipients. You can put the details of your request. You can allow for custom responses. There are templates, and you can actually create custom templates per teams for specific requests. The primary way I use approvals is as an outlet for Power Automate. So it works really well with Power Automate, which I believe is our next topic. And it's really great for, because you can either have it set up so that the first person that responds affirmatively uh, counts. You can have it so that multiple people have to approve a thing, but basically it's a replacement for needing signatures for things. You can use it, and what's great is it's tracked. So you can see here, these are all approvals from my team for leave requests. Uh, the format of them has changed since I started using that because, again, this is through Power Automate, so I could customize the request title. I always approve them, but you can see who it was sent by, when it was sent. Approvals are really, really powerful. The files tab here will show most of the recent stuff that you've opened. So if like you're trying to remember a thing that you remembered that you had open last week, maybe you can find it on here. I know I've helped at least one person find something they swore they lost by going here. talk about how Teams relates to SharePoint. All right, so Niels, that's a great point. Um, so like, what is Teams? Um, is a really fundamental question, and the answer is it is an amalgamation of a skin on a SharePoint site together with a bunch of other video and like it really is just a skin on a bunch of different applications. But the teams themselves are really just SharePoint sites. At any given team, it's really, really easy if you look for it to open in SharePoint. All of these are sitting on top of a SharePoint site, which means you can access a lot of customization. So if I want to customize this main page for the FPR Forestry Division team, I can go ahead and do that. I can edit this page. I can add some quick links. I can customize some documents. And then I can make that a tab on the team so that if you have people that don't like SharePoint, because I think we all know people that don't like SharePoint, but they're okay with Teams, you can make it seem like that's just a really cool Teams page that you built. Because it's really, really easy to just add various um, document libraries, SharePoint stuff. All of these are really just various elements in a SharePoint site. So if you can do it in SharePoint, you can do it in Teams. And when you have a new team created, whether that's your IT department or whether that's you, um, it's giving you a SharePoint site. And it's the newer format of SharePoint sites that are actually easy to work with and customize. So again, it's all about customization in Teams. Opening files in Teams and moving files is easier in SharePoint. Yeah, if something you're trying to do is easier in SharePoint than it is in Teams, and like so this is the default file viewer in Teams. There's some stuff you can do here, but like maybe it would be easier to do in SharePoint. Like just open it in SharePoint. It's the same stuff. It's just a different way of viewing it. All right, so yeah, I mentioned lots of chats, lots of functionality there. The activity feed will basically show you all the stuff that's relevant to you. So, and you can sort of customize what things show up here as well. So I get approvals through here. I get various references to me in here. Um, you can easily make calls with people, either video or phone. And we mentioned calendar. So it's really, really easy to meet now or add those meetings like we talked about. So there are some additional things on here. So you can, we mentioned for these, I call them webinars now, um, you can have registration built in. Really, really cool. All right. We are at time. Any final questions, concerns? All right, great. It was great talking to you all, and I think our next one is on Power Automate, and that one will transform the way you work. So looking forward to seeing you guys all there. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.